The red security tie on my locker snapped with a dry little crack, sharp enough to turn every face in the cash office. It was Friday close. Rain hammered the metal roof above the auction lanes, and Jonah Mercer had just announced that our $31,840 bank deposit was missing. She handled it last, he told the visiting auditor. Then my cousin made me empty my locker while the whole office watched. My spare blouse went onto the stainless sorting table. Then my auction gloves, aspirin, phone charger, emergency almonds, and the silver thermos that had belonged to my mother. Jonah picked up the thermos and shook it. That was when I remembered passing the sealed bag across his desk, not setting it near his keyboard, not leaving it on the cash cart. Passing it into his hand, red tamper strip first, while a coffee ring spread across the custody sheet between us. I looked at his glass-walled office behind him. "What?" he said. "You took the bag." The room changed without anybody moving. Bernice Hall stood by the title printer with a stack of pink reassignment forms pressed to her chest. Kyle from dealer registration had stopped chewing. Even Mimi, who could keep sorting 20s during a tornado warning, had both palms flat on her counter. Jonah lowered my thermos. "Excuse me?" "The carrier canceled because of the storm. You said you'd lock the deposit in your desk safe and take it to the night drop." Nadine Cho, the auditor, shifted the custody binder from one arm to the other. She was compact, silver-haired, and so neatly dressed that the rain seemed to have avoided her on principle. "Do you remember the bag number?" she asked. 47196? Jonah gave a short laugh. It sounded practiced, like the one he used when a dealer tried to claim a cracked windshield had appeared after the sale. Of course she remembers the number. She prepared it. "I sealed it," I said. "Then I transferred it to you." "No, Mara. You told me you were taking it to the bank." "I did not." The red pieces of my locker tie lay on the floor between us. One half had landed beside Jonah's polished brown shoe. He turned to Nadine. "Can we please do this in my office?" "You wanted the locker search witnessed," I said. "Let's keep the rest witnessed too." A muscle moved in his cheek. Jonah was good-looking in the dependable way our dealers liked. Pressed shirt, broad shoulders, expensive watch, hidden just enough under his cuff. At family dinners, strangers assumed he was the reasonable Mercer. He remembered birthdays, carried folding chairs without being asked, and could tell a funny story about losing $8,000 on a hail-damaged Escalade without ever admitting whose decision it had been. He set my thermos down carefully. "Nadine," he said, "show her the log." She opened the black custody binder on the sorting table. The plastic rings made a little popping sound. Our deposit record sat behind numbered tabs, 1 page per banking day. She turned to Friday. There was my name, Mara Bell, bag 47196, $31,840, prepared, counted, sealed. The next custody line was blank. At the bottom was a photocopied image of my initials beside the notation, "Night Drop." I stared at it long enough for the fluorescent lights to start buzzing inside my skull. "That isn't my notation. Those are your initials," Nadine said. "They look like my initials." Jonah folded his arms. "Mara." I hated the way he said my name when other people were listening. Soft, regretful, already forgiving me. "The original sheet had a coffee ring on it," I said. "Right here, near the transfer column. I put my finger on clean white paper." Jonah looked at Nadine. "She's under a lot of strain." "Oh, don't do that." "Your refinance, the divorce." My mortgage didn't steal the deposit. Kyle's chewing started again, slower this time. Nadine closed the binder halfway. "When was the bag last physically verified?" 542, I said. I counted out with Mimi. The last dealer payment was from Tully Motors, $12,000 in cash and the rest cashier's checks. I read the seal number aloud. Mimi nodded once. She did. Jonah's eyes moved to her. Mimi looked down and resumed stacking 20s, though there were no 20s left to stack. "And after that?" Nadine asked. "I took the bag to Jonah's office because the carrier canceled." Jonah sighed. You came to my office to tell me you were leaving. With $31,000 in my hand, you were angry about staying late. I stay late every Friday. You were angry because I denied your promotion." Bernice's forms made a faint crumpling noise. That was new. Jonah had told me the operations job was being postponed, not denied. He had also told me not to discuss it because Vivian, the owner, his mother, my aunt, hadn't finalized the budget. Nadine watched my face catch up. Jonah saw her watching. He moved quickly. That was one of his real skills. If a bidder exposed a weakness in a deal, Jonah didn't defend the weakness. He gave everyone a different problem. "We have a missing deposit," he said. "The bank has no record of it. The night depository has been checked. Mara's initials are on the custody sheet, and her access card was used at the south exit at 6:18. We can debate who hurt whose feelings after we secure the facility. My access card is used at the south exit every Friday. That's where I park. Which is why we checked your locker. Before asking me? Cash controls require immediate action. You cut my lock. It's company property. The distinction landed exactly where he aimed it. His company, his decision, his version of my name on his paper." Nadine opened a slim leather folder. "Mara, until I complete an initial review, your access to financial systems and secured areas is suspended. I'll need your badge and keys." Jonah reached into his office and came back with a single sheet of paper. He had already printed my resignation. I knew what it was before he placed it face down beside my mother's thermos. The Mercer County Auto Auction logo showed through the back, a blue gavel over 3 gray lanes. "If you'd prefer to handle this privately," he said, "we can discuss a voluntary separation." For one strange second, I almost laughed. Jonah had used 11-point Calibri. He used 11-point Calibri for everything, including the Christmas lunch menu and a condolence letter to a dealer whose business partner died during a fishing trip. "When did you print that?" "This is a standard form." "When?" "Mara, take the weekend." Nadine held out her hand for my badge. I unclipped it from my waistband. The plastic had worn cloudy around my photograph. 6 years of opening the cash office at 7, eating lunch over title reports, and knowing which dealer would try to pay a $500 deposit with 5 separate debit cards fit into Nadine's palm. My keys went next. Jonah glanced down at the broken security tie. "Bernice, issue her a property bag." Bernice did not move. "I can carry my own underwear home," I said. Kyle choked on his gum. It wasn't much, but it was the first kind thing anybody had done for me. I put everything into my canvas lunch tote. The thermos stuck out of the top. Jonah kept his fingers on the resignation paper as if a draft might carry it toward me. "You know what happens if dealers hear about this," he said quietly. "They'll wonder why the general manager took custody of a deposit and then searched somebody else's locker." His face emptied. There it was. Not anger, calculation. Until then, some weak, stupid part of me had still been waiting for him to say this had gone too far. We were cousins. We had folded auction programs at the same kitchen table. After my mother died, Jonah had stood beside me at the funeral home and removed 3 staples from a flower card because he knew the sight of crooked staples drove me crazy. Now he was figuring out whether I had proof. I lifted my tote. "Check your desk." "Leave the premises, Mara." The rain had flooded the painted arrows in the dealer lot. Cars waited in 4 muddy lines beyond the lanes, their windshield numbers bleeding under clear plastic sleeves. Somewhere near Recon, an engine refused to turn over, and a lot attendant shouted, "Give it gas," as if the car had been holding back out of spite. I got into my Honda and sat with both hands on the wheel. Through the office windows, I could see Jonah speaking to Nadine. Bernice stood several feet away, still holding the pink forms. Jonah pointed once toward the south exit, then toward the bank folder. Nadine said something. He answered too fast. My phone buzzed. "Vivian." I let it ring until it stopped. Then it started again. My aunt had owned 58% of the auction since my mother sold most of her share during her illness. The remaining stock had gone to pay medical bills and settle the estate. I inherited my mother's thermos, 2 boxes of tax records, and a family position people described as secure whenever they wanted me to accept less money. On the 3rd call, I answered. "Where are you?" Vivian asked. "In the parking lot." "Jonah says you're refusing to cooperate. He cut open my locker in front of the office." "Under the circumstances?" "What circumstances?" Her breath crackled through the speaker. Vivian had smoked for 30 years, quit for 8, and still sounded as if every sentence had to climb stairs. "The deposit is missing." And Jonah took it. "Mara." He took the bag from my hand. "Then why isn't that in the record?" It was. The words came out before I had decided I believed them. Rain crawled sideways across my windshield. Vivian went quiet. "What are you saying?" The page Nadine showed me was a photocopy. The original had a coffee stain. Jonah's cup was sitting on it when I transferred the bag. "You're accusing him of altering an audit record. He accused me of stealing $31,000. He said nothing about stealing. He said there was a custody failure. He printed my resignation before he searched my locker." Another silence. This one hurt more because I could hear her choosing. "Jonah is trying to protect the auction," she said. "From me?" "From panic. We have the Grayson Plumbing remarketing review on Monday. If Nadine reports a control breach before the guarantee is renewed, we could lose the entire account." "So that's what you called about." "I called because I don't want you doing something emotional." I looked at the cash office again. Jonah had closed the blinds to his glass office. One by one, white slats turned until I could no longer see him. "Did you ask whether I took the money?" "Mara, don't." "Did you?" "You're putting me in an impossible position." That was Vivian's phrase for any position in which the right thing cost her something. "I'll save you the trouble," I said. "I didn't take it." "I know you've had expenses." The rain seemed to stop making sound. "My divorce was 18 months ago." "I'm not judging you." "You just reached into my bank account to see if theft would fit." "That's not what I meant." I hung up before she could improve it. At home, I emptied the tote onto my kitchen counter. My blouse was wrinkled. Almond dust coated the aspirin bottle. The broken locker tie had somehow come with me, caught in the cuff of my auction glove. The thermos had a shallow dent near the base. My mother used to rap it twice against the counting table before opening on auction mornings. Her version of knocking on wood. I unscrewed the lid. Inside was nothing but the smell of old coffee. I set it upright, then found a legal pad and wrote down every movement from 5 o'clock forward. Tully Motors, final count, Mimi verifying, seal 47196, carrier cancellation, Jonah's office, coffee ring, desk safe, south exit. At 6:12, Jonah had asked whether I had finished the Grayson reconciliation. At 6:14, I had passed him the bag. At 6:18, I had badged out. 4 minutes. I wrote the times again, pressing hard enough to mark the page beneath. A little after 10, headlights swept across my living room. Bernice climbed out of her Buick carrying an auction property bag and a white bakery box. When I opened the door, she held up the box. "I brought pie so this can look social if Jonah asks." "What kind?" "Lemon." "I hate lemon." "I know, that's why it's believable." She came inside and handed me the property bag. My phone charger was in it. Though I had already brought my phone charger home, so was a bottle of aspirin that belonged to Kyle. "I think everybody panicked during the inventory," she said. "You didn't." "I've been panicking since 4:30. I'm just private about it." She stood at my counter, staring at the broken red tie. Then she touched the thermos with one finger. "I should have stopped him from shaking that. You should have stopped him from cutting the lock." "Yes." The words sat there without an excuse attached. Bernice opened the lemon pie and cut 2 pieces neither of us wanted. "Jonah told us not to contact you," she said. I figured. He said Nadine may interview everybody Monday. He moved me to dealer registration until further notice. The promotion she had been waiting on was assistant title supervisor. Dealer registration was where Jonah put people when he wanted them visible and powerless. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'll spend the weekend thinking of ways to misspell his name badge. I almost smiled. She pushed the pie around her plate. Do you remember Tuesday morning? She asked, when Jonah made me order a new custody binder? No. You were reconciling online fees. He said the old rings weren't closing right. The rings had closed perfectly that afternoon. I remembered the popping sound when Nadine opened them. Bernice looked at my legal pad. He didn't ask me today, Mara. He ordered the binder Monday, 4 days before the deposit went missing. I stopped with my pen over the page beneath the one I had written on. My timeline was visible there in dents, every hard stroke preserved without ink. What happened to the old binder? Bernice finally looked at me. Jonah took it. Why? He said he was taking it home to reorganize the tabs. Jonah has never reorganized anything with tabs in his life. He put the fleet contracts in a drawer, labeled miscellaneous. The spare auctioneer batteries are labeled contracts. I labeled those. That explains why we can find them. Bernice smiled, but it barely reached one corner of her mouth. She pressed her fork through the lemon filling and left 3 straight grooves. Was the old binder full? No. We had at least 2 months left. What kind of pages were in it? The yellow duplicate sheets. Same as always. I looked down at my legal pad again. The pressure marks from my timeline showed through on the clean page beneath. Our custody forms came in white and yellow sets. The white original stayed in the binder for audit. The yellow copy was torn out at the end of each week and filed with the bank confirmations. If a deposit reached the bank late, the 2 copies made it harder to change the story afterward, unless you replaced the whole binder before anybody knew there was a story to change. Did Nadine have a yellow copy today? I asked. I only saw the white page. It wasn't white. It was a photocopy. Bernice set down her fork. How sure are you? It had gray shading around the punched holes and no coffee ring. You should tell Nadine. I did. No, tell her like she's an auditor. They don't hear accusations. They hear things they can preserve. That was the most Bernice sentence ever spoken. She believed every disaster could be improved by choosing the right verb. I turned to a clean page. All right, what do auditors hear? Dates, locations, people who don't like each other but remember the same thing. She stood and carried our untouched pie to the refrigerator as if she lived there. My mother had liked Bernice for exactly that reason. Bernice never asked where the plates were twice. We made a list. The carrier cancellation had come by email at 5:21. Mimi had verified the final count at 5:42. Tully Motors had paid $12,000 in cash. The batch close receipt would have a timestamp. The south door would show me leaving at 6:18, but it would also show that I had not returned. The camera over lane 4 might have caught you calling the seal number, Bernice said. The sale was over. The microphone stays on until Kyle shuts down the simulcast computer. Kyle forgets to shut down the simulcast computer. Kyle once live-streamed himself eating half a meatball sub. He sold the other half for $8 to a dealer who thought it came with a clean title. That got a real laugh out of me, quick and painful. Then we both went quiet because the people we were joking about would be back at the auction Monday and I would not. Bernice looked at the list. Desk safe. It has an electronic access report. Jonah knows that. He also knows his mother approved him as the emergency depositor. He knows a lot of things separately, she said. He's not used to somebody putting them on one page. I emailed Nadine before I could talk myself out of it. I kept the message dry. I identified the original custody sheet, the former binder, the corresponding yellow duplicate, the carrier notice, the batch report, the Lane 4 archive, the South Exit access history, and the desk safe report. I asked that all of them be preserved. At the end I wrote, I will make myself available for any interview, but I will not sign the voluntary separation form or admit to a custody failure I did not commit. Bernice read it over my shoulder. Take out the part where you called Jonah a damp weasel. I didn't write that. I'm checking your judgment. You brought lemon pie to the home of an innocent woman. I needed plausible deniability. She left just after midnight. I watched her taillights disappear and understood that I had already cost her something. Jonah had moved her out of titles because she had hesitated during the locker search. If she helped me and I lost, dealer registration would be the nicest place he could put her. At 7 Monday morning, my alarm went off out of habit. I showered, put on work pants, and stood in my kitchen holding the blue Mercer County auto auction polo I wore on sale days. Then I folded it back into the drawer. By 8, the payroll portal listed my suspension as unpaid. I opened my banking app. Mortgage on the 1st, car insurance on the 7th, the final legal bill from my divorce on the 12th. I had enough savings for 6 weeks if I stopped pretending coffee purchased outside the house was a constitutional right. At 8:17, an email arrived from Jonah. Mara, given the ongoing review and the seriousness of the control failure, management is prepared to release your accrued vacation balance upon execution of the attached acknowledgement. This is an effort to avoid further harm to all involved. Please understand that discussion of confidential auction matters with staff, dealers, or vendors may affect this offer. The attachment said I had retained sole custody of bag 47196 after sealing it and failed to complete the night deposit. I printed it. Then I circled sole custody so hard the pen tore the paper. At 9, Tully Motors called my personal phone. Ernie Tully had been buying cars at our auction since back when the cafeteria sold cigarettes behind the register. He was 70 if he was a day, but his voice still carried like he was bidding across 3 lanes. Mara, where's my title money? I'm not at the office, Ernie. I know that. Jonah said an employee custody breach froze Friday settlements. I closed my eyes. He was blaming delayed dealer payments on the missing bag. That gave every dealer with cash trapped over the weekend a reason to hear my name and think thief. You'll need to speak with management, I said. I am speaking with management. I'm suspended. The silence on Ernie's end felt different from Vivian's, less careful. For what? I can't discuss an open review. You just did. No, I gave you a job title. You gave me a bad mood. You already had that. I did, don't take credit. He hung up after promising to complain to everybody who could not escape him. It was funny until 2 more dealers called. The third asked whether police had searched my house. At 10:30, Nadine replied, I have placed preservation holds on the listed records. Please do not contact auction employees regarding the review. I can meet you today at 1 p.m. at the Oakfield office. No reassurance. No statement that the old binder existed. Not even a damp weasel assessment. I brought my timeline, Jonah's acknowledgement, and the broken red locker tie, though I left the tie in my purse when I realized it made me look like I was collecting evidence from my own nervous breakdown. Nadine's Oakfield office occupied the 2nd floor above a dentist and a store that sold nothing but decorative lighting. She met me in a conference room the size of a pantry. A framed photograph of a lighthouse hung crooked over her shoulder. She did not offer coffee. Your email was specific, she said. I was trained well. By whom? My mother. Then Bernice, mostly by correcting me in public. Did Bernice help you write the email? I'm not going to drag her into this because she returned my property. That wasn't my question. Yes. Nadine made a note. You understand that coordinating recollections can compromise an investigation. We didn't coordinate recollections. She told me Jonah replaced a binder on Monday. I listed records that exist whether Bernice likes me or not. Another note. Why would Mr. Mercer frame you? I didn't use that word. You implied document alteration. Yes. Why? I don't know yet. Nadine watched me for a moment. Try. The truthful answer made me feel disloyal even after Jonah had cut open my locker. He wants the Grayson Plumbing contract renewed. Their vehicles have guaranteed floor prices. Several sold short. How many? 11 over the last 2 auctions. Total shortfall? I don't know exactly. Somewhere above 40,000. And how does a missing cash deposit assist him? It doesn't. Not permanently. Temporarily? I thought about the reconciliation Jonah had asked for at 6:12, 2 minutes before I passed him the bag. Grayson gets made whole before the bank sees the weekend batches, I said. Then the next sale covers the delay. That would produce late deposits. We've had 3 in 6 weeks. Were they reported? I asked Jonah about them. He said the carrier had changed routes. Did you document your concern? No. Why not? Because he's my boss. Because he's my cousin. Because his mother owns the company and is also the person who decides whether I'm being helpful or difficult at Thanksgiving. Nadine's expression did not change, but her pen stopped. I went on. And because Jonah is good at his job, he built the municipal lane from nothing. He knows every dealer who pays slow and every auctioneer who speeds up when he's nervous. I thought he was smoothing something ugly, not creating it. Did you benefit from the Grayson account? The whole auction did. That's not what I asked. I was being considered for operations coordinator. By Mr. Mercer? Yes. So you had a financial reason not to report your concerns. There was no kindness in the question, which was why I believed she might be useful. Yes. She turned to my timeline. We walked through every minute twice. On the second pass, she made me explain why I knew it was 6:14 when I entered Jonah's office. The wall monitor was showing lane 2's close out, I said. The clock said 6:13 when I walked past it. His office phone rang while I was there, and he let it go to voicemail. The desk safe beeped after he took the bag. You saw him place it inside? No. I turned to leave. So you cannot testify that the bag entered the safe. I can say he accepted custody. Can anyone else? The transfer line can. The line you allege is missing. The audio may have the bag number. The safe has an access report. Neither proves transfer. I know. She leaned back. Mr. Mercer says you were upset over the operations position. He told me it was postponed. He says he informed you Friday morning that you would not receive it. He did not. Did you argue? At noon, I asked why 2 Grayson reimbursements were coded as dealer incentives. He told me to finish my own work. Did you? I finished everybody's work. It was Friday. That nearly moved her mouth. Nadine closed the folder. The carrier confirms the scheduled pickup was canceled at 5:21. Your cash batch closed at 5:43. The south door shows your departure at 6:18 and no return under your badge. Lane 4? The archive was marked for deletion Saturday morning. By whom? I'm still determining that. The cold traveled from my shoulders down my arms. Was it deleted? The vendor retains a backup for 72 hours. I requested it at 8:46 this morning. My legal pad sat between us. I had pressed so hard while writing that 3 blank pages carried the shape of Friday. And the safe? I cannot discuss interim findings. You asked me to come here. I asked you to answer questions. So Jonah gets to offer me my own vacation pay in exchange for a false confession while you protect his interim findings. That did move her mouth, though not toward a smile. Send me the offer. I slid it across the table. She read the acknowledgement once, then again. Did he copy counsel? No. Payroll? No. His mother? No. Nadine placed the paper inside her folder. I am reopening the custody review, she said. Relief rose so fast it embarrassed me. That does not mean I accept your conclusion. It means the available record is incomplete. I'll take incomplete. You will also stop discussing this with Ms. Hall. She's a witness, not a hostage. She is an employee whose livelihood may be affected. So is mine. I'm aware. I stood, then remembered something. The old custody binder, was it preserved? Nadine's eyes lowered briefly to the folder. I have requested it. From Jonah? Yes. And he says it was discarded because the rings were defective. My hand tightened around my purse strap. Our secured shredding console is emptied on Wednesdays, I said. Nadine looked up. If he threw it away Monday, the contents should still have been there Friday. He says he took it home to remove the confidential pages before disposal. That is not our records policy. No, she said, it is not. Outside, my phone showed 5 missed calls and a new voicemail from Vivian. I played it in the car. Mara, Jonah tells me you're contacting vendors and interfering with the review. Grayson is withholding renewal until their settlement clears. I need you to think carefully about what you're doing to this family. I deleted the message, then restored it from trash. At 3:06, Bernice texted 2 words, Walt remembers. I called before thinking better of Nadine's warning. Bernice answered in a whisper. Auction noise rolled behind her, engines, the clipped rhythm of a bitter chant, somebody yelling for lane keys. Remembers what? Friday. He was locking the service gate when Jonah left. With the bank bag? No, his leather document case. Jonah carried that case to contract meetings. It was stiff-sided, wide enough for a sealed deposit bag, and he never took it home on Fridays. What time? About 6:30. Walt complained because Jonah made him reopen the gate when he came back 20 minutes later. Will Walt tell Nadine? I asked. He said he doesn't get involved in Mercer family weather. That sounds like Walt. I told him weather doesn't ask permission before it takes your roof. I could hear her walking now, shoes quick against concrete. Bernice, be careful. I am careful. A door closed on her end. The auction noise vanished. Her voice dropped even lower. Jonah had Kyle shut off lane 4 before lunch. Then he came into registration and asked whether you ever borrowed my keys. To his office? To anything. The open review had reached him. What did you say? I said you borrowed my car once and returned it with the seat moved up so far I bruised my knees. That's true. You're built like an efficient bird. Bernice. I told him you've never had my work keys. And? He smiled. I knew that smile. It meant Jonah had found a version of events he thought could survive contact with other people. He's changing the story, I said. No, Bernice whispered. He's adding to it. Adding what? The service gate. He asked Walt whether he could swear nobody came through while it was open. Walt was standing there. He left to help Recon jump a car, maybe 3 minutes. There it was, a gap small enough for Jonah to crawl into. He's going to say I came back. Without using your badge? Through the service gate, with your keys. My keys don't open his office. They open the accounting corridor. That's not enough. It doesn't have to be enough. It just has to make everything else less certain. A knock sounded on Bernice's end. Registration, Kyle called. I have a dealer who thinks a passport is a resale certificate. I'll call you later, she said. Don't. Nadine told me to stop involving you. I was involved when your cousin handed me a property bag for your underwear. She disconnected. The next morning, Jonah's revised account reached me through Nadine. He said I had watched him enter his desk safe code during prior closings. He said Bernice's keys could have gotten me into the accounting corridor. He said the service gate had stood unattended for several minutes after I left. Most importantly, he now remembered locking the deposit in his desk safe. It should have vindicated me. Instead, he claimed that when he returned from the bank at 6:52, the safe was open and the bag was gone. He had panicked, searched the office, and waited until the following business day to alert Vivian because he wanted to avoid falsely accusing a family member. Unfortunately for him, Nadine was sitting across from me when she read that part aloud. He announced the missing bag Friday, I said. There was no following business day. He says the written statement contains a wording error. Does the wording error explain why he first said I took the bag to the bank? No. Or why my locker was opened before anyone asked me about his safe? No. Then why are we treating this like a memory contest? Because incomplete evidence does not become complete merely because one witness changes his account badly. She said it without heat. Nadine could have made a fire alarm feel personally responsible for the smoke. We were in the Oakfield conference room again. This time she had brought coffee in a white paper cup. The lighthouse still leaned behind her. "The safe report shows Jonah's code at 6:16 and 6:37, she said. I sat forward. "He accepted the bag at 6:14. The first opening is him putting it inside. It is consistent with that. And the second is him taking it out. It is consistent with that too. Did my code appear? You do not have a code. Did anybody else's? No." I let out a breath. Nadine held up one finger. "The safe log records codes, not people. Mr. Mercer argues that you knew his. He changes it every quarter. The code makes the lock beep differently when it's wrong. I heard one beep, then the bolts. Can anyone verify that? His office phone records might verify when I was in there. It rang while he opened the safe. I have requested them." From Jonah? From the provider. That was the nearest Nadine came to saying she no longer trusted him. She opened another folder. Inside were printouts from the Lane 4 archive. The picture frames were grainy and gray. I could see the edge of the cash counter, Mimi's shoulder, and my own hand holding up the deposit bag. "The vendor recovered 12 minutes of audio," Nadine said. She pressed play on her laptop. Static filled the little room. Then Kyle's distant voice said, "If anybody's listening, Lane 4 is closed and I regret the meatball sub." Nadine glanced at me. "I can explain. I sincerely hope you cannot." The recording continued. A drawer slammed. Mimi coughed. My own voice came through, thin but clear. "Bag 47196, 31840. Mimi answered. "Verified." A minute later, my voice again. "Carrier canceled. I'm taking it to Jonah." The audio ended in a burst of auction music. For the first time since the locker search, I heard Friday happening outside my own memory. Nadine replayed the last sentence. "He knew this archive existed," I said. "He submitted a deletion request Saturday morning." Who normally deletes auction footage? It cycles out automatically after 30 days. And he requested Saturday because? He says the microphone recorded confidential dealer information. It recorded Kyle digesting. I noted the inconsistency. She closed the laptop. "This supports your account through the moment you left the cash counter. It does not document the handoff." But the safe opens 2 minutes later, under Jonah's code. I know. Walt saw him leave with his document case. "Mr. Pierce has declined a formal interview." I looked through the crooked blinds at the decorative lighting store below. A brass chandelier in the window was turned on in full daylight. "Jonah controls Walt's overtime." "I'm aware." "Are you aware that he moved Bernice to registration?" "Yes." "And sent a false custody acknowledgement without copying payroll or Vivian?" "Yes." "And told dealers an employee breached delayed settlement?" Her eyes came up. 3 dealers have forwarded his message. Ernie Tully, I thought, complaining to everybody who could not escape him. "Grayson?" I asked. "They have paused renewal." There was no pleasure in being right. The fleet contract paid enough to cover half our slow season. Losing it would cut auction hours and recon work long before it hurt Jonah. "What did the ledger show?" I asked. "I cannot discuss that yet." Nadine. 3 bank deposits arrived 1 business day later than the corresponding custody records indicate. The exact 3 I asked Jonah about. "I do not have documentation of your prior concern, because I was trying not to blow up my family. And now?" Now they handed me the match. She studied me for a second, then slid Jonah's acknowledgement across the table. "Do not sign this." I wasn't going to. Good. My suspension remained unpaid. By Thursday, I had canceled my gym membership, moved the dentist appointment I'd already postponed twice, and learned that lemon pie tasted less hostile for breakfast. My name traveled farther than I did. Dealers left careful voicemails asking when I expected to resolve my situation. One said he had always considered me reliable, using the past tense. Vivian called every night. I answered on Thursday because silence had started feeling too much like permission. Come to the auction, she said. After close, just us. Does us include Jonah? Yes. Then it isn't just us. Mara, please. The word startled me. Vivian did not plead. She summoned, instructed, occasionally requested. I arrived at 7 through the public lobby because my badge was still in Nadine's possession. Kyle sat behind registration and looked terrified to see me. I'm not supposed to let you pass the counter. I'm meeting Vivian. I know. Then why do you look like I brought bolt cutters? He pressed the release button under the desk. Because Jonah asked if you ever expressed an interest in locks. Tell him I have strong opinions about hinges. The auction floor smelled of tire dressing, damp concrete, and the cafeteria's scorched onions. My locker had a fresh red tie through the latch. Someone had placed a white label over my name. Unassigned. I kept walking. Vivian and Jonah waited in the conference room overlooking Lane 1. They sat on the same side of the table. A pitcher of water stood untouched between 3 glasses. Jonah wore shirt sleeves. He had rolled them evenly 2 turns each. His leather document case leaned against his chair. You brought the case, I said. His hand moved toward it, then stopped. I bring it every day. Not Fridays. Vivian rubbed her forehead. Can we sit down? I stayed standing. She looked smaller than she had a week earlier. Jonah looked better. Pressure polished him. We need a path forward, Vivian said. Grayson will not renew while the audit remains open. That's Nadine's review, not mine. You demanded she reopen it. I identified records Jonah tried to erase. That's a serious statement, Jonah said. So was she handled it last. He leaned back. I did take the bag temporarily. Vivian's head turned toward him, not in surprise, but warning. I placed it in my safe, he continued. When I reopened the safe, it was gone. Then why did you say I was taking it to the bank? I was under pressure. You had a resignation form ready, because I knew you'd turn a procedural mistake into an attack on me. The nerve of it almost made me admire him. What procedural mistake? Leaving secured funds accessible after you watched me enter the code. I didn't know the code. You stood 6 feet away. Your desk blocked the keypad. Maybe you saw it another time. Maybe your floor prices are being covered by late deposits. Vivian slapped one palm on the table. The water jumped in the pitcher. That is enough. She looked at me, which told me who enough was for. Your mother trusted this business to me, she said. She would hate what's happening. My mother trusted you with her shares. She trained me to speak the seal number out loud. This family kept you employed through a difficult period. My work kept me employed. Jonah's expression softened. Mara, nobody is saying you didn't work hard. There it was again. The voice that forgave me before the verdict. Vivian pushed a document across the table, a revised separation agreement. It offered my accrued vacation, 4 weeks of severance, and neutral employment verification. In return, I would acknowledge a shared custody failure and agree not to disparage the auction or its management. Shared, I said. A compromise, Vivian said. Jonah gets the office. I get half the blame. You get a clean exit. My exit was clean before he put my underwear on a sorting table. Jonah looked toward the window. You're making this personal. You used my divorce to explain why I might steal from you. I mentioned financial pressure. In front of my coworkers, I was establishing context. I picked up the agreement and tore it once down the middle. I left the pieces aligned on the table. Vivian stared at them. If Nadine proves Jonah took the bag, I said, I want my lost pay restored, the accusation corrected in writing, and custody controls that don't answer to either of you. And if she doesn't, Jonah asked, then you'll still know what you did. I left through the public lobby. Kyle pretended to be deeply occupied with a stapler. Bernice was waiting beside my Honda. He put me on a performance plan, she said. For what? Failure to follow reporting lines, excessive personal discussion, a disrespectful facial expression. You do have one of those. I have several. I'm sorry. She shrugged, but her chin tightened. I remembered something. From her tote, she took a clear archive sleeve. Inside was a yellow carbonless form with a brown crescent near one corner. "The coffee," I said. "When Jonah spilled it, I separated the white original so it could dry. The yellow copy was underneath. At week's end, I put the yellow sheets in the bank confirmation packet like always. Where was this?" "In the secured shred console. Jonah must have pulled it from the packet when he changed the white page." "You removed material from the auction?" "No, Nadine did." Nadine stepped out from behind Bernice's Buick. She held a small evidence envelope and looked irritated enough to audit the weather. "I asked Ms. Hall to identify records from the console before Wednesday pickup," she said. "She recognized this one. We went back inside, but not to Jonah's conference room. Nadine used the cash office while Jonah was still upstairs with Vivian. The remaining employees watched us enter. My freshly labeled locker sat behind them. Nadine laid the yellow sheet beneath the light at Mimi's counter. The visible writing stopped at my sealed bag entry, but pressure marks crossed the blank transfer line below it. She angled the lamp. Letters rose from the paper in shallow grooves. J.M. Bag 47196. I leaned closer as the rest of the indentation caught the light. Desk safe. The log had never ended with me. Nadine did not raise her voice. "Ms. Hall, please ask Mr. Mercer and Ms. Mercer to come downstairs." Bernice left with the careful speed of someone carrying a full cup across an uneven floor. Mimi stood frozen behind her register. Kyle had drifted in from dealer registration and was pretending he needed something from the supply cabinet. Nadine looked at both of them. "You may continue working." Kyle opened the cabinet, stared at 3 boxes of staples, and closed it again. Jonah entered first. Vivian followed with the torn separation agreement still in her hand. "What is she doing in here?" Jonah asked. Nadine touched the yellow sheet with one finger. "Reconstructing the custody record." He saw the coffee stain. For half a second, his face lost all its management. He looked tired and frightened, and younger than either of us had been in years. Then his eyes moved around the room, counting witnesses, exits, loyalties. "That was discarded," he said. "It was placed in secured destruction," Nadine replied. "The material was preserved before pickup. You can't read a carbon copy under a lamp and call it evidence. I can read your initials. They could be anyone's. You signed the quarterly control certifications with the same initials. The remaining marks show bag 47196 transferred to your desk safe." Jonah gave a small, incredulous shake of his head. "Mara had access to those forms, not after you suspended her. She could have made the marks Friday. Then your claim that she retained sole custody was false." He opened his mouth and stopped. Nadine turned the yellow sheet toward Vivian. Under the low lamp, the impressions were faint but orderly. My signature ended one line. Jonah's began the next. Vivian put on the glasses she wore on a chain around her neck. She read without touching the page. "Jonah?" Mara knew the safe code. "I didn't. She was in my office all the time. Because you assigned me work. You paid attention to everything. You used to call that competence." His jaw tightened. Nadine removed 2 more pages from her folder. "The safe opened under your current code at 6:16 and 6:37. Ms. Bell left through the south door at 6:18 and did not re-enter. Mr. Pierce has now confirmed that you exited the service gate at approximately 6:32, carrying your leather document case. You returned around 6:51. Jonah looked toward Bernice. She met his eyes. Whatever promotion she had once hoped to receive from him was gone from her face. "Walt talked?" he asked. "He said roofs are expensive," she replied. It took me a second. Then I remembered what she had told him about weather. Nadine continued. "The bank's night deposit record shows that you deposited bag 47194 at 6:44. It contained the cash batch you had coded to the Grayson Plumbing account. The missing bag was 47196. "I made the scheduled deposit." "You made a deposit," Nadine said. Vivian lowered herself into Mimi's empty chair. "Where is the other bag?" "I don't know." The answer came too quickly. Nadine closed her folder. "Then we will inventory the desk safe, the accounting corridor, and every locked records cabinet in the general manager's office. You don't have the authority to search my office." "I do," Vivian said. Jonah turned to her. "Mom." The words sounded strange in the cash office. It reduced all his press shirts and practiced regret to something more naked. Vivian looked at him for a long time. "Give her your keys. This is exactly what Mara wants. You understand that, right? She couldn't get the operations job, so she made every normal timing problem look criminal." "You cut open my locker," I said, "because $31,000 was missing. You knew where it had been." "I knew where I left it. Then it disappeared." "And before looking in your own records cabinet, you searched her aspirin?" Bernice asked. Jonah swung toward her. "You're on a performance plan." "Add disrespectful tone." "Enough," Vivian said. This time she was looking at him. He took the keys from his pocket and dropped them on the counter. They hit beside the yellow sheet with a heavy metallic slap. Nadine asked Vivian and Jonah to accompany her. She asked me to remain in the cash office. I wanted to object. I wanted to see his desk opened, his files moved, his control reduced to labeled shelves. But Nadine had been right about one thing from the start. Wanting an answer did not entitle me to manufacture the process that found it. So I waited beside my locker. Mimi returned to her register and counted a stack of blank receipt paper. Kyle discovered a sudden need to alphabetize temporary dealer badges. Nobody knew what to say to me now that their silence had been entered into the room with everything else. After 10 minutes, Mimi cleared her throat. I should have told him no. "To what?" "The search. You were working." I watched. "So did I." She looked at my locker. "I verified that bag." "I know." I told Nadine. That mattered more than an apology designed to make both of us feel better. "Thank you," I said. Kyle set down the dealer badges. I saved the meatball sub-recording before Jonah asked me to delete it. Nadine got the vendor back up. "I know. Mine had better audio." Mimi stared at him. "What?" he said. "I have standards." The office door opened. Nadine came in carrying a clear evidence sleeve. Inside it was the sealed deposit bag, red tail intact, its 2 black triangles still touching. Bag 47196. Behind her, Vivian gripped the doorframe. Jonah did not come in. "Where?" I asked. "Locked records cabinet behind the 2024 invoice binders," Nadine said. "The cabinet key was on Mr. Mercer's ring. Ms. Mercer confirms she does not possess a duplicate." The bag looked smaller than it had in my memory. It had taken up my mortgage, my reputation, my aunt's voice, and every expression in the office. Now it was just thick plastic, black numbers, and $31,840 that had never gone anywhere. "Is it intact?" Mimi asked. "The seal is intact. I'll verify the contents under dual control." Jonah appeared in the doorway behind Vivian. Mara put it there. He said it loudly for the room. She came back through the service gate. She knew where I kept the cabinet key. Walt Pierce stepped into view behind him, rain still on the shoulders of his lot jacket. He was a square gray man who always looked as if he had been assembled from spare truck parts. "No, she didn't," he said. Jonah stared at him. "I opened that gate for you," Walt continued. "You drove out, I closed it, you came back, and I opened it again. Nobody else passed me. You left the gate. To jump a Buick. I could see it from recon. You told Bernice." "I told Bernice I don't get involved in family weather." Walt looked at the sealed bag in Nadine's hand. Then weather came through my gate. Jonah's shoulders dropped by an inch. Nadine asked him to come back into his office and complete a written statement. He laughed once, without humor. "A statement about what? I didn't steal it." "About removing a deposit from secured custody, concealing it, altering its record, and making a false accusation against an employee. I was going to deposit it Monday." "Then why did you report it missing Friday?" I asked. He looked at me, and the answer formed between us before he said it. Nadine arrived early. She had been scheduled to start the Grayson Review Monday. The storm changed her travel plans, so she came Friday afternoon to collect preliminary records. Jonah had expected the weekend to move numbers around. Instead, she had asked for the bank confirmations, while the missing bag was still in his office. "I needed time," he said. "So you gave her my name. You were the last person before me. I thought you'd go home, take the separation, and let me fix it. You thought I'd accept being called a thief. I never called you a thief. You shook my mother's thermos." His face changed then. Not much. Enough. Vivian closed her eyes. Jonah put both hands on the back of a chair. Grayson was $42,000 under guarantee. If they saw that loss before renewal, they would pull the fleet. That's 1,200 vehicles a year. Lane fees, recon, transport, Walt's overtime. Half the work back there. Walt's face did not move. "I shifted the earlier deposits one banking day," Jonah said. "Nothing was gone. Friday's bag would have closed the timing gap Monday. Then the next sale would normalize it." "The next sale would create another gap," I said. "Only if it was weak." "And if it was?" He looked toward the lanes. That was the part Jonah had never allowed himself to answer. He understood auctions better than almost anyone I knew, but he believed skill could eventually order luck around. "I was protecting the business," he said. "You were protecting the contract you promised." "It was the same thing." "No," Vivian said. "It wasn't." He turned to her again. "You approved the guarantees. I approved the first 6 vehicles. You expanded it to 30. Because it was working. Until it didn't." Nadine stepped between the sealed bag and the yellow sheet. "Mr. Mercer, your financial access is suspended effective immediately. Ms. Mercer, as controlling owner, you will need to appoint an interim signatory before Monday banking." Jonah looked at Vivian. She removed his office key from the ring and handed the rest to Nadine. "I'll appoint one," she said. His authority ended that quietly. A key sliding off a metal ring. His name still remained on the glass door. His jacket still hung behind his chair, and everybody in the office had heard him lose the right to touch either. The bag counted correctly. Nadine and Mimi verified it while I watched from beyond the secure line. Every bill and cashier's check was exactly where I had sealed it. Nadine documented the intact red strip, then returned my badge. She did not offer a speech. "Your suspension is lifted," she said. "Back pay is subject to Ms. Mercer's written authorization." Vivian flinched at the wording. "I'll authorize it," she said. "I want it in writing." Jonah gave me a bitter, almost admiring look. "There she is. There I've always been." Vivian removed him as general manager that night. Nadine's review found the 3 delayed deposits and the false dealer incentive entries, but no money had left the auction for Jonah's personal use. His annual bonus and deferred compensation were applied to the Grayson shortfall. Grayson kept part of its fleet with us after Vivian admitted the guarantees had been misstated and accepted lower fees for 2 quarters. The other vehicles went to a competing auction. It hurt. Recon lost Saturdays for a while. Walt's overtime shrank. Jonah's plan had been built around real consequences. Exposing it did not make them imaginary. The written correction went to every employee and dealer who had received his custody breach message. It stated that I had followed procedure, transferred the sealed deposit under emergency protocol, and had no responsibility for its concealment. Ernie Tully called to read the entire email aloud to me, adding, "I knew that," after every sentence. "You asked if police searched my house." That was market research. Bernice's performance plan disappeared. She received the title supervisor promotion with a raise Vivian had once described as impossible. Vivian offered me Jonah's job. We met in the cafeteria after close, beneath a menu board that still listed a tuna melt nobody had ordered since 2019. She brought a folder. I brought my silver thermos. "I can't run the place alone," she said. "You shouldn't." Her mouth tightened. Is that a no? It's a no unless financial oversight reports outside the general manager's chain. 2 signatures on every custody exception. No relatives reviewing complaints against relatives. My back pay and vacation restoration in the offer, not promised across a table. You've thought about this. I had an unpaid week. She looked older, but not helpless. Vivian had built an auction through recessions, fuel spikes and dealers who treated payment dates as suggestions. Regret would not make her harmless, and anger would not make her useless. I should have asked whether you took it, she said. Yes. I knew you didn't. No. You hoped you didn't have to know. She absorbed that without reaching for my mother's memory. Then she opened the folder and made notes. I accepted after Nadine reviewed the control structure and Vivian signed it. Jonah left the auction. He did not apologize. The last thing he said to me was that I would discover how much of management was choosing who got hurt. He was right about the choosing. He had just believed that made every choice equal. On my first Friday close as general manager, rain tapped the lane roof without becoming a storm. Mimi counted the deposit. Bernice verified it. I pulled the red tail until the black triangles met. Bag 47283, I called. Verified, Bernice said. I passed it across the counter to Nadine under the new 2-person rule. She signed the white original, then pressed firmly enough for her initials to mark the yellow copy beneath. My mother's silver thermos stood beside the custody binder. When the fresh duplicate curled at one corner, I set the thermos on it. The yellow page flattened. The seal stayed closed.